In our survey of genre in the Psalms, we'll look at many different genres. We'll look at praise psalms and personal lament and corporate lament. And one of the ones that seem a little more fiery than the others are the genre called Imprecatory Psalms. So, to talk about Imprecatory Psalms, these are the Psalms that ask God for vengeance upon their enemies. So we could look at it this way. Of the 150 Psalms that we have in the Psalter, 50 of them are petition Psalms. They're asking God for deliverance from their distress. Out of those 50, 35 of them go beyond asking for deliverance from their distress to the other side, the negative side, you could say. They want to see the enemy punished. So they're not only asking for deliverance in their petition, they are asking for judgment then on those who have caused their distress, who have caused their problems. And so that sentiment, it lies at the root of an imprecatory psalm. Imprecatory psalms ask God for vengeance upon their enemies. So there are some historical examples that we could talk about. Moses prays, "Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you." See, it's a prayer for judgment, a prayer for vengeance on the enemies, that the enemies could not succeed, that they would be scattered before God's people, and that everyone who hates you might flee before your presence. So that has that imprecatory flavor to it. When Deborah comes back, and Deborah and Barak compose a song celebrating the victory that they've had, one of the things that they say in the song is, "Cursed Meroz," because they did not come to the help of the Lord. So this particular city did not come out to help Barak and Deborah in their battle. And then that song ends in Judges 5, verse 31. "So may all your enemies perish, O Lord." All right. And then Jeremiah has the similar kind of thing. "Let those be put to shame who persecute me. Bring upon them the day of disaster. Destroy them with double destruction." So there is Jeremiah asking God specifically for justice, for vengeance upon those who have persecuted him personally. He wants them brought to a day of disaster, as Israel has at the destruction of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar. Bring upon them the day of disaster and destroy them with double destruction, complete destruction. So here's some historical examples of that kind of flavor of imprecation. So we'll go on. How could we look at these things then? Well, first, it is true that society is filled with evil. And so when we think about some of the struggles in the Old Testament or some of the struggles today, prayer can be driven by a deep desire for justice. God is just. And we want that justice to be clearly seen in this world. And that would mean the judgment upon those who are intrinsically unjust. So that kind of injustice, that kind of evil insults the glory of God. So it's appropriate that we join in the moral indignation that anything that would insult the glory of God. And so justice demands that that evil be paid back. So here are maybe some theological reasons that could underscore the kind of prayers that we've been reading. We also are in a covenant relationship with God. So what that means is God is our maker, our redeemer, our provider, and our protector. And we owe him our allegiance, our obedience, our desire to serve and glorify him. And so we pray for vengeance when anytime God's people, the ones he has covenanted to protect, whenever they're in trouble, we not only want their deliverance or our own deliverance, but we want them to be brought before the justice of God. And then when we think about imprecatory prayers, we also have to realize prayer is effective. So when we pray, if we were praying imprecatory prayers, we are, in a sense, asking God to move heaven and earth in judgment against those people. How does that play out in your mind and heart? Especially like when we have in the New Testament, in the Sermon on the Mount, we are told by Jesus that we are responsible for turning the other cheek. So do you think that Jesus is teaching a higher ethic here than those Old Testament imprecations of Deborah or Moses or Jeremiah? Would it be appropriate for us to pray imprecatory prayers today? Would that be legitimate? And then you think about even after that, then, when we get to Revelation, there is a description of those who have died for the faith, who are occupying a space under the throne, who are calling out, how long before you will judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? That's the sense of imprecation. So how do we play that out? And what we'll probably end up doing is we're going to have a little debate in our heads or with each other about whether or not this is appropriate or not. I have mentioned in other places that the Psalms tutor our emotions. They tutor our prayers. So we are allowed to pray what the Psalms pray. And if that's the case, then I think imprecatory prayers, understanding that God is the judge of all the earth and he will do what is right. So there we are. Perhaps the most difficult in our discussions of imprecatory prayers is Psalm 137. So this is an imprecatory psalm. It is a psalm of mourning for those who have been captured and carried off into Babylon, and the Babylonians, because they love a good folk song, ask the Jewish people to sing songs from their homeland. And they say, how can we do that in this captivity? And one of the things then that they say, you get the flavor of an imprecatory psalm in this reading, and then I'll just leave it to you to decide how we should interpret that and whether or not it's legitimate for today. Remember, O Lord, against the Edomites, the day of Jerusalem, how they said, lay it bare down to its foundations. O daughter of Babylon, doomed to be destroyed, blessed shall he be who repays you for what you have done to us. Blessed shall he be who takes your little ones and dashes them against the rock. So how should we interpret that? It's in the Psalms. So I leave it to your consideration. Maybe in some other videos we'll be able to shed some light. But thanks for listening.